Welcome back. You're watching Nation Tonight. Now, Prime Minister Modi is on a two-day France visit, and the maitri between both the nations continues to grow. Both India and France are celebrating the 25th anniversary of strategic partnership and are drawing a roadmap for the future. French President Emmanuel Macron received Prime Minister Modi at the Élysée Palace in Paris a short while ago. Hailing the ties, Prime Minister Modi said France is India's natural partner and that both nations share the same values of liberty, equality and fraternity. On the other hand, the French President Macron has said that both nations can together find solutions for global crisis.
हमारी डिफेंस स्पेस एजेंसीज के बीच सहयोग बढ़ाने की संभावनाएं हैं। फ्रांस की कंपनियों द्वारा एमआरओ फैसिलिटीज, स्पेयर पार्ट्स, हेलीकॉप्टर के लिए इंजन का प्रोडक्शन भी भारत में किए जाने पर हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। हम इसमें हमारे सहयोग को और सशक्त करने पर बल देंगे।
Earlier today, Prime Minister Modi joined President Emmanuel Macron for the Bastille Day celebration in Paris as the guest of honor. The Indian Tri-Services played an integral part of the French National Day celebrations in the French capital. A contingent of the Indian Armed Forces was seen marching alongside their French counterparts. My colleague Rishabh joins me on the broadcast for more inputs on this. Rishabh, good evening. Clearly, as far as we talk about the significant visit, there are many aspects to be talking about, but what can you tell us in your perspective? What are the key things that people should be knowing from Prime Minister Modi's visit today?
Well, there are three things that the viewers should be knowing. First, the students, the young students who want to pursue higher studies in France will get an extended visa, and that is something that is very, very significant. Remember, till now, all European countries generally gave visa for one extra month than the prescribed course. If your course was 1 year, you will get a 13-month visa was the norm. But now the French president also announced, so did Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that an extended visa would be provided to Indian students. And that is something very, very significant. A 5-year long-term visa will ensure that the students, after finishing their course, can look for a job in France as well. And that buffer time that they'll get of around 36 months is something that is very, very crucial for young professionals who want to pursue further studies in France. Universities like Sciences Po or others, which are very, very famous among students here in India, if this happens, that will give extra time, a buffer time of 36 months for the students to actually look forward and plan their future rather than packing their bags on the last day of their course and leaving France. That is one thing very, very significant. We have seen PM announcing that Indians can use the UPI now in France. That is something very, very important. Remember, UPI is something that has become part and parcel of all of our lives, and anyone who wants to scan and pay can do that in France as well now. So the Indian UPI, the Beam app, will function in France system as well, and that is something very, very important, because this will also save the whole hustle of exchanging the currency and giving the commission and losing money in the exchange rate as well. That is very, very important takeaway from this. Apart from that, what we have seen, even France saying that they want their students to come to India. The exchange programs between students is something that will help India understand France better and France understand India better. Both these countries understanding each other's, needs and conditions will definitely broaden the aspect of cooperation between both the countries. The solar agreement that India and France is talking about, if that materializes, the way both the countries are looking at renewable energy will definitely be broadened, and that is also very important. So significant things there are. We know that DAC has cleared the Rafale deal with France, and negotiations will begin, though that was not part of this joint statement that we just heard from President Macron and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but that is also in pipeline, and we'll hear it soon as well. So very significant visit, people to people connect,
Right, Rishabh.
in the mobility issues.
I'd have to interject you there, but of course You've got us a lot of talking points, in fact, that we can tell our viewers as well. But for the moment, we leave it at that. But taking a cue from what my colleague Rishabh was talking about is the UPI. In fact, India and France have agreed on usage of the United Payments Interface, so better known as the UPI mechanism. The big development came during Prime Minister's two-day visit to France. The Prime Minister made the announcement while addressing the Indian community at a performing arts centre on an island in River Seine. Now, the use of India's most successful payment system will begin from the top of the Eiffel Tower. That's right. In other areas, Indians visiting Europe will be able to use their UPI app to make their payments in France in the rupee using the local QR or UPI ID.
भारत के यूपीआई यानी यूनिफाइड पेमेंट्स इंटरफेस को फ्रांस में लॉन्च करने पर समझौता हुआ है। हम दोनों देशों के स्टार्टअप और इनोवेशन इकोसिस्टम को आपस में जोड़ने पर बल दे रहे हैं। समान विचारधारा वाले देशों के साथ मिलकर हमें टेक्नोलॉजी सप्लाई चेन्स के लोकतांत्रिकरण के लिए लगातार काम करना चाहिए।
To take this conversation forward, I'm being joined in by our guests, Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti, former Secretary MEA, Shairee Malhotra, Associate Fellow Observer Research Foundation, as well as Gigi Balot, Associate Research Fellow at IRIS. Thank you very much for joining us here on Nation Tonight on Mirror Now. Mr. Chakravarti, let me begin with you. This visit is, of course, coming right after Modi's visit in the US. So in your opinion, how significant is this?
It is an indication that India does not put its eggs in one basket, and the whole concept of multilateralism, multipolar world is signified by the fact that India and France are going to develop a special relationship, and it is quite clear that, but it's nothing new. Now 25 years that India and France have decided that they must have a strategic relationship. India is a defense kind of a importer of hardware, and France has been a very important player in this. And our maritime area in the Indian Ocean is very important for us, given the fact of China's rising sort of presence in this region. And the Rafale and the submarines are basically maritime deterrent factors that will help India maintain security in the Indian Ocean. So I think France and India do share,
right,
apart from the relationship on defense, etc., they do share a worldview in the sense that they look at the world in through the similar lens. One of them is strategic autonomy, that France and India do share that view that they must maintain their strategic autonomy in terms of the international order. And I think this is a very significant sort of a congruence of views in foreign policy. Apart from that, France and India also share a lot of other things, democracy, etc., and all that. But there are deficits also. I must mention that the trade is not enough. Investments are not enough in both ways. And I think people-to-people contact should also increase. But I think this students' visa thing and the work visa is, I think, a good idea, because that will increase people-to-people contact and it will increase services exports both ways. This is an important area. I mean, I think because Indians tend to go to USA and English-speaking countries. And one thing, it's now quite clear that more and more young Indians must start learning French.
Right. Right, Mr. Chakravarti, as you make those significant points, in fact, let me get in a word from Mr. Balat as well. In your opinion, what are the big perception issues that EU continues to have about India? Is that changing over time, in your opinion? How is this visit important in that aspect?
Well, what is strange is that visit is not so popular. Maybe because this is the 14th of July, and you know that the French, whenever they can, they leave to countryside and to beaches, etc., etc. But it has been very controversial. And the question is, for me, has this visit allowed to narrow a little bit the, let's say, mindset in France and in India about that cooperation? So I think it has improved on two ways. The first one is you have not much noticed that in the Modi speech, but the reference to the Indo-French partnership. It was signed 25 years ago, and that is the 25th anniversary, attached to democratic values. That is particularly for French people, something very important, a statement from Prime Minister Modi, very important. On the other side, I think that India got what she wanted to. It is the Rafale for the naval. And as you know, the question between India and Russia is about this kind of military fighters, and to what extent the share of Russian military equipment should be a little bit more reduced so that the Indian diplomacy feel more comfortable with the expression of its own ideas of multipolarity. Apart from the Rafale, the submarine, that's very important, as it was mentioned by Mr. Chakravarti before. Submarine is about what? It's about, this is 6 already, plus 3 now, okay? That is the top of the art equipment for controlling the route on the Indo-Pacific region. So France is not big actor on that region because it's very far away, and France needs absolutely to attach, to have a reliable ally on the Indo-Pacific. And the only available ally and strong enough for the naval is clearly India. So I think that visit was very, very useful.
Right, Mr. Bailor, as you make those, opening remarks as well, let me get in a word in from Ms. Malhotra. Shairee, France is, of course, India's second biggest defense partner after Russia. Given where Russia is geopolitically, in your opinion, how important is it to keep France as a strategic defense partner?
So thank you for having me, first of all. Definitely, defense is the strongest element of the India-France strategic partnership. And even during this visit, a number of defense deals are being signed. India is going to be purchasing some 26 more Rafale jets, this time for the use of the Indian Navy. There's also the idea to co-develop engines for fighter jets using French technology. Of course, the submarines have already been mentioned. So all of this shows that, defense is central to the partnership. And France is, in this sense, also contributing to India's Make in India initiative, which aims towards indigenous defense production. And of course, you mentioned Russia, which has traditionally been India's largest military supplier. But now Russia's military arsenal is depleting rapidly because of the war. And of course, France has emerged as a key partner for India in this context. And going forward as well, this relationship is only likely going to deepen when it comes to defense. I would also add that apart from, of course, the lucrative deals that France is getting, there is also the element of addressing security issues in the Indo-Pacific region. Both France and India see eye to eye when it comes to maintaining security and stability here, where a lot of the world's trade passes through, and China's coercive actions are somewhat destabilizing the environment here. So, of course, France is the resident power in the region, given that it has territories there. France was also the first European country, in fact, to release its Indo-Pacific strategy back in 2018. And this was long before the concept even started trending. So in this regard, India's engagement with France is very very substantial. There is strategic convergence between the two countries, but there is also convergence when it comes to, maintaining principles of inclusivity, openness, and transparency in the Indo-Pacific. And I think this whole seeing eye to eye when it comes to security issues in this important region is also another added factor that is propelling the defense partnership.
Right. As we speak about defense, another big talking point and a milestone movement is India and France have agreed to use UPI in the European nation. The rupee, of course, going global. What does it mean for India's growing stature? Mr. Chakravarti, if I could get you into the conversation to comment on that.
Well, I think the digital world is changing so rapidly, and people are moving on to these digital platforms. It's, by the way, also a major theme in the G20, the coming G20 summit that is going to happen in Delhi. So I think the world is changing, and I think we are more and more getting used to digital sort of financial transactions. And you imagine that if the whole world, for example, started using UPI, then how digital transactions can change. I think the whole financial transaction system internationally is going to be revolutionized. So these are very important steps that are being taken, no doubt, step by step. Not everybody is on board, but I think the digital stack and the digital public infrastructure is going to be an important part of the global agenda. And I think India is already pushing it in the G20. So I think these are very important developments. And I'm very happy that France has come on board because France is an important country in Europe and in the world. It's a P5 member. It's an Indo-Pacific sort of partner in many ways. And I think this is a very important step forward, this digital transaction agreement.
As far as we speak about the global agenda, Shairee, getting you into this, Modi, of course, has called it a game changer. It's, of course, a huge difference also for middle class, who plan their dream trip to Europe. This is, of course, going to make a significant impact.
Sorry, what is the question again?
If you can hear me, this is, of course, we're talking about the global agenda changing, where Prime Minister Modi has called it a game changer. So it's a huge difference even for the middle class who, generally plan the dream trip to a destination like Europe. So this is, of course, going to make a significant impact.
I can't hear you. Sorry. I think the connection is weak.
We'll try getting... All right, we'll try getting our producer to check that front. But Mr. Bailo, let me come to you. India, of course, has changed the way digital transactions have been used. How does France look at this?
Well, we have not much discuss about this. I think what Mr. Chakravarti is saying is very important. You must understand that France is a small country, isn't it, compared to India? India is 20 times larger in terms of size and population. Now, whenever you visit France, you visit Europe. This is what all the Indian middle class do. And having that UPI system will help a lot because UPI is not yet accepted everywhere in Europe, isn't it? So thanks to this agreement, I think that France will push also the UPI system to be extended to all European countries. I have a friend, for instance, coming from Mumbai. So she's been here for 1 week and she started to visit Spain, and then UPI is not accepted there, and then France, etc. So that is for the, let's say, civil society, the French, Indians, day-to-day relation, something important. But let me come back to just one issue. You have not mentioned, and it was not mentioned, that this diplomatic, the geopolitical relation is since 25 years, but even more now, very, very strategic for both. But the leg on economic side is very weak. France is less than 1% of the Indian market. And reverse is almost true as well. India export to France and also to Europe, but particularly to France, is very small. So the question is, how can we extend and support and develop the economic relations between France and India? France, as part of Europe for sure, was a little bit discussed, but I think not enough. We have discussed military equipment, that's okay. But the
Right, Mr.
military
Bailot, I'll
delivery
have
to
to
India,
interject you there. Let me take a quick comment before wrapping up from Ms. Malhotra. Ms. Malhotra, if you can hear me, having France in our good books, will that suffice? Is that the beginning of our outreach towards EU, in your opinion?
Well, I think the outreach to the EU, both from India and vice versa, has actually been happening since the pandemic. France is definitely a big player. It's a central partner for India in the EU. But I would say since the Russia-Ukraine war began, the EU has actually been actively courting India, trying to understand the reasoning behind India's position when it comes to the war, and also the position of several countries in the global south, in fact. And I would say China has been a big wake-up call for the EU through the war. The EU has also recognized that its heavy dependency on China is a problem, and in that regard, it is trying to diversify its dependency away from China, and it looks at India as a natural partner in this regard. And yes, trade has been
Right, and on
mentioned.
that
Trade
note,
has
I'd
been
have to interject you there, but I want to thank all three of you for taking the time out and joining us here on Nation Tonight and drawing things into perspective as far as the relations between both these countries are concerned. But we leave the conversation here for the moment, and that's all I have for you in this edition of Nation Tonight. Thank you very much for watching, but stay tuned to Mirror Now News and Views to continue.